have a laugh with us. I'm Shadow Soul 720. So let's talk about Digimon. Let's jump into a new deck profile that I built, guys. Let's do it. So if we skip a lot of stuff, let me just jump to some new decks. So where do I start? I could show you this Veemon deck that I really love, that I work on pretty hard. So this is essentially the sort of deck I wanted to build with Imperial Dramon and Pale Dramon. Now, the combination of these two means that you can, if you do it right, you can get three attacks off in one turn. So that is the idea behind this deck. Colamon is here as a blocker that costs 1 to Digivolve. Very, very good card, very good champion, because I don't really care about most of the champions in this game. Veemon is here. You know what? Nah, skip it. You know what? We're gonna go full circle, guys. We're gonna skip my current jamming deck with Imperial Dramon and stuff, and all these tech cards, and we're gonna go straight to my new deck. How about that? Straight to my new deck. So, this is the first of the iterations. It gets progressively better, but I will show you this one because it's more focused on Imperial Dramon and my current build. And there's 3 or 4 ways you can build this deck. It just depends on what suits you guys best. So, because I love Veemon and its evolution line the most, that's what I've based a lot of my preferences around. So, a lot of the cards in my decks are just cards that I enjoy. And if you guys enjoy a specific Digimon card, let me know. And I can always recommend some cards that I think would pair really well with it, and that I think that'll just, be good. Because my idea is that you can make any card in this game pretty good. Like, you can work to its strengths, and you can make a decent deck. And it doesn't always mean it's going to be the most meta, because it depends on how many cards you add that you like. But if you add just a few cards that you really enjoy, there's many ways you can make it viable. That's what I believe. But in saying that, I also play a deck with many different colors that is doing really well, so we'll see how we do. So, brief rundown. Actually, hang on, let's see. Can we sort this? Let's sort it by level? The other way. Sort it by level, ascending. How about that? Yeah, that'll work. Alright. So in this deck, we run 4 Hammer Sparks, guys. 3 would be pretty okay as well. So, feel free to toss it up. Use whatever artwork you like. You gain a memory. In security, you gain 2. I don't really have to say much about this. It's just a great card. You can use it without really any cost. So, if you need to balance out, for example, the number of cards in your hand, if you need to balance out how to get your opponent to exactly 1 memory, so you can, the term that people use is memory choke. But sounds a bit forward for me, so we'll just say procrastinate. I don't know. We'll think of a term later. You guys help me think of a term. So anyway, the Ray of Victory is our other option card in this deck. We don't run too many options. So the Ray of Victory is here because it's amazing to pull up Insecurity every single time, generally. So you return one of your opponent's level 5 or less Digimon to the hand. Its sources are discarded. If you have a blue tamer, you make one of your Digimon active. So this deck, as you can see here, has at least 2 tamers in it. At least 2. Generally, I'll have 3 memory tamers in any deck that I build. So, the ability to restand a Digimon, especially in the Veemon sort of line in blue, is great. But if you see an opponent's level 5 Digimon and it's got sources underneath it, it's not a non-play effect, generally, I would just bounce it. And no matter what, you're generally always getting benefit by using this card to bounce a huge level 5 back. So that's why I think this card's amazing. I think it's always been amazing. I feel like people underestimate it, and that's fine by me. Okay, next we have Matt. So it's Memory Tamer. It sends it to 3 if it's less. But when a blue Digimon is played, you can rest this Tamer card to discard the lowest source on their Digimon. So it's great. I like it. It's one of the better Memory Tamers. It is the best. I think it's the best Memory Tamer at the moment for blue. Some people would say Davis. I would say you're wrong. But I'd also say it depends on the circumstance. So we don't mind this because we like getting rid of the opponent's sources a little bit with this deck. Now, Let's Stop Fighting. That, I would say, is a key card. So I don't know what it's like in Japanese, but apparently in English. So read this, right? Digimon cannot be destroyed by battle until the end of this turn. Apparently, what this means, and what it means when I've looked it up, and what it means when a friend has told me about it, is that if you use this card, it's better than V jamming or whatever it's called. There's like a V-Dramon card that has jamming on it. This card is better than jamming because it stops your Digimon from being destroyed in battle, which apparently includes security. I'm not sure if that's the same in Japanese, but here in English-speaking languages, this stops you from getting hit in the security. So if you have a Digimon that attacks multiple times, like a specific one that we do in here, like this guy, who doesn't have jamming, you can just swing a ton and then not die. Yep. Apparently it's that simple. That simple. We just stop fighting. And of course, if your opponent blocks things, your Digimon, if they're even like, say they were super low level or weak or something like this guy, or even better example, this guy, their blockers won't be able to destroy your Vmons with jamming. So, underestimated card from BT3. We have one hidden potential discovered. So we don't have too many green Digimon here, but it's limited. This card's limited, and I wanted to try and just throw it out there, see what it's like. Also, Let's Stop Fighting has a bit of a terrible effect at times. So, I'll Drag You Into the Depth is one of my other favorite cards. So before I go much further, I should probably tell you guys, if you haven't already picked it up, the idea around this deck is that we attack a lot and we remove the opponent's sources from their cards. It's kind of like that, the typical, some people calling it like a source strip deck with Gomamon. Hex Blamon's going to be a big one soon. You guys will see it when you see it. Wagarurumon, things like that. We aim to get rid of their sources, but we also aim to do the Imperial Dramon thing and just attack a whole bunch. I'll Drag You to the Depths is one of my favorite option cards. So, it costs 1. All of your Digimon gain, when attacking an opponent's Digimon with no sources, delete that Digimon for the turn. So, it deletes it as an effect. Your opponent can't block. The opponent can't block. It just attacks something that, make sure that things are suspended. You attack it, it's destroyed. Doesn't matter if your DP is like 2,000 and theirs is like 8,000. Your little Vmon can knock out a huge fish, right? Just by using this card. But they have to have no sources, which is why it's important for us to remove it with things like Matt. So I recommend playing, I don't know, maybe 2 Matt, 3 Sora, which is the next Salvatore Matt, Sora and Joe. BT5 coming out very soon for us. It's already got a price on it that's pretty high. This card I think is better than Matt in a lot of ways, especially in this deck. So it's not quite a memory tamer, but if your opponent has Digimon with no Digivolution cards at the start of your turn, you gain 2 memory. So if you had multiple mats, this guy, you're only going to go to 3 memory ever. But if you have multiple of this, you might see turns where you get no memory, but you might see other turns where you get like +6. Which is why I think this card is very amazing. And if you pair the both of them into the same deck, you might automatically go to 3 and then gain +2. You know, like just by having the 2 of them on the field at the same time. And having +5 memory at the start of your turn is huge, absolutely. So this card is so much better because if you have a blue Digimon that attacks, you can get rid of the bottom 2 sources of one of their Digimon. Again, removing the sources so we can use things like drag you into the depth, right? And just so we can have a good time all around because it shuts down Digiburst and it shuts down a few other things. It shuts down their inherited effects and things like that. I really enjoy it. Now, what eggs are we running? I just put one of each. The ones I think are the best. So we have some Digimon that unsuspend. So this guy's just here so we can potentially run over something if we need to, luckily, like in a luck situation. I don't recommend putting all different eggs, but if you want a little bit of fun, some randomness, go for it. Upamon, one of the better cards. If they have a Digimon with no sources, you draw a card when you attack. Again, you know, fits into the strategy. Wanyamon, while they have 2 or more Digimon with no evolution sources, it gets plus 2000 DP. So, this guy is just, if you unsuspend, you get 1000. If you attack something with those, if you attack and they have something with no sources, you draw a card. If they have 2 or more Digimon with no sources, you get 2000 DP. So that's more specific. But if you're removing enough sources, you should be able to do this pretty well, and you could probably build a deck around Wanyamon. Maybe even Digivolve it up to like Dino Beamon or something like that, and that would be fantastic. And then Demi-Veemon. So if your Digimon has jamming, you draw a card from the deck. I think this is the better way to go with most Imperial Digimon decks. And I generally recommend it for, you know, I've even seen decks just running Veemon with jamming and this guy, and they do pretty okay. And then Bukamon's the last one. It's a little bit of a splash. Some people like it, some people don't. Trash the Digivolution card at the bottom of one of your opponent's level 4 or less Digimon. So it's just an early getting them to trash, which can help. But remember, it's only level 4 or less, so there's only 1 or 2 cards that you can trash there. But the best thing about Bukamon is it's not once per turn. So you can do this as many times as you want. A good thing about Wanyamon... No, sorry. Yeah, that's it. That's actually it. So Bukamon is the only effect that you can use multiple times when you attack lots. So the other thing that I want to do with this deck is when I'm attacking with some stronger Digimon like Imperial Digimon that can attack, you know, maybe 3 times, and Ulforce Digimon that can attack more than once as well. I want to see if I can get inherited effects on my Digimon that allow things to trigger multiple times. So if this is my inherited and they've got some level 4 or less Digimon, I can remove a whole bunch of sources at once. Because, you know, if I swing, say, 3 times, that affects hit going 3 times. That's 3 sources gone. That's huge. And then our rookie lineup. So playing into this exact same thing. This is starter, Gabumon. People think it's pretty worthless, not very good. I don't know why. Because when it attacks, you discard a source from your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. So it's the same sort of thing as Bukamon. It's just level 5 or less now. So sometimes I'm even tempted just to not even go Bukamon and just throw in like 4 Gabumon. This deck's running 3 because I still really like the card. I like the artwork. I like what it does. And being able to use its inherited effect more than once per turn means we can get rid of multiple different sources just by having one Gabumon under like an Imperial Dramon or something. Veedramon. You might notice a trend. Inherited effects that trigger more than once per turn. So this one, when attacking, if you have 7 or fewer cards in your hand, draw 1 card from your deck. So this Veemon is the big reason why we're running 4 Hammer Sparks. Vulcan's Hammer, whichever, you know, why we're running 4 hammers. So if we have more than 7 cards, what we'll do is we'll play some Hammer Sparks to gain memory, lose those cards in our hand, and then be able to keep drawing from Veemon. That's the idea. Because if I can play cards that cost relatively nothing, like Drake into the Depths and Hidden Potential Discovered, then all in all, I'm getting more cards anyway. I'm getting more draw. I'm potentially getting more memory. Jack Raid would be amazing with his VMon, I think, as well. But working a way for that to get into the deck with cards that I like, I'm finding that to be a little bit of a struggle. I could probably tech in some Skull Greymon, the purple one, at some point, and see how I go with that. But for now, that's where this is at. Also, it has a nice little niche effect of if your opponent's got level 6 or higher Digimon play, it can go into Ulforce Veedramon for 4. So that's a huge warp Digivolve. We only run the one Ulforce Veedramon. In later editions of this sort of deck, I'll always change up the amount of Ulforce I have, whether this card or a different version of Ulforce. But between 1 and 3 is probably pretty good. I'd only run 3 Ulforce if I'm running at least 4 VMon, like this specific VMon. And that's what I'll say for that. So, but again, we're mainly using it because I really like VMon, I like the artwork, I like how the card is, and the fact that it's inherited is more than once per turn means we can just stack on that value for days. And I'm not sure how many people have actually thought of things like this, but I love it. Like, we might not even see Digimon like this for a while again, because like this Gabumon is the very first Gabumon that ever came out. It was one of the very first cards, right? So like maybe they made a mistake and they didn't put once per turn. They should have. Other things we have. I'm skipping ahead a bit. One of these being one just because I like it. It's got jamming. It's very useful. If you have Imperial Dramon, it goes well. I only have one in real life, so I only put one on here. You could, put in some more if you wanted to make that sort of jamming deck, but I feel like jamming Imperial Dramon, it's just a deck that a lot of people already know, and you guys kind of understand how it works. As much as I love it, I don't find myself getting too much value of it because my deck isn't set up that way with EX VMon. So I just kind of leave it at 1, maybe 2. 3 is probably pushing it, but that's where I'd run that. This is the new Retro VMon from the EX1 set. I love the artwork from these sets. And one reason I revised a lot of my strategies is getting ready for these. So these come out after BT6. I'm assuming near the end of 2021, maybe the start of 2022. Probably the end of 2021, near Christmas or something like that. Is my guess on when these will come out. Maybe earlier, who knows, might be November. So, this card, once per turn when it becomes unsuspended, you gain a memory. It's just here because I like it. I think, because it's limited at once per turn, it's not that good. If it wasn't limited at once per turn, it would be way too good. So it's a bit of a hard, catch on to where to put this card. But I just put 1 because it's nice. Also, you'll notice its attribute is free. That'll be important in a later deck. Goemon. This guy, you can reduce the cost of it for every one of your opponent's Digimon without Digivolution sources. So normally I'll take maybe 1 to 3 of these, depending on how my deck is built and how much source removal I think I currently have in it. But it can be a bit cloggy, especially at the start of the game when you're like, it's going to cost 3 or 4 anyway, so I might as well just play a different card. But later game, you might be able to play it for 2 or 3, 1 or 2 on a memory cost. If you're able to play it for nothing, that's insanity. Now, this Goemon pairs really well with this mat. When you play Blue Digimon, you can rest this time to discard a source on your opponent's Digimon. They go pretty well, but then the irony of that is generally you will want them to have no sources in order for you to play your Goemon, and by then they don't have any sources for you to remove with this mat. Ironically enough. But if you have multiple Goemon or something in your hand, then that's a viable strategy. This Colamon, Tobiomon and Colamon, 1 cost Digivolutions in blue, the only other one is Gorillamon, and I don't like Gorillamon. Plus, Colamon is a blocker. In my opinion, better than Grismon most of the time. So I'm snapping it up, and I remembered it from Digimon World 1. Helping us out across a lake. Or a beach? A river, something like that. Now, this is where the deck tends to really shift quite a bit in the champion lineup. So we have EX Vmon and Stingmon. Both of these from EX1, ironically enough. So I love the art. This is going to be my new staple of a champion card. My new middle person for most of the decks I build, even though it's just a common, which is amazing to me as well. So it's one of the first champions that can digivolve into two different colors, green or blue. Now, it's got jamming. That in itself is already great. That's just like another sort of Vmon, right? But it's a champion. Cool. But while this Digimon has Imperial Dramon in its name or free in its traits, it gains jamming. So free is kind of like data, vaccine, virus. It's those sort of attribute types. And there's not that many Digimon with free. It's only really the Digimon from... it's like Hawkmon, Armadillomon. It's like those four, I think. Hawkmon, Armadillomon, Vmon, and Stingmon, and their evolutions. Not all their evolutions, just all their armor evolution sort of things. And what's it called? Some interesting ones, notable ones, is Grand Kawagamon. I think that's the name of it. Or maybe it's not. It's like the black one that's really tanky looking. Maybe it evolves from Stingmon. Not sure. But that's definitely one to consider because it has the free attribute. And there's a version of it with 14,000 attack. There's also the final evolution of Gomon, the one past Zudomon. I don't remember its name, but that, I believe, there's a version of that that's also free from the first set. So you could technically put jamming on that as well if you wanted to. Otherwise, there's not that many, and it's just those lines from what I've seen. But anyway, the big thing about this is it gives Imperial Dramon jamming, right? Or anything with free. So we'll talk about Stingmon as well. So where XVmon is all about jamming, Stingmon's all about piercing. So it has piercing and it gives the same sort of Digimon piercing. This is when we're going to skip ahead a fair bit. So Paildramon, for example, is free in attribute. You can see it under its name where it says Ultimate and then free, then Dragon Man. Dragon Man. Weird. But Paildramon, for example, would be able to get piercing or jamming. So it's already got jamming, so it doesn't need that so much. It doesn't need that so much. But if it has piercing, it means you can pierce, you can destroy an opponent's Digimon, and you can then check security and have jamming and be fine with that as well. Now, the cool part about this is if we put it onto Imperial Dramon, right? This one, the jamming one. If this thing, it doesn't need jamming at all. But if it has Paildramon as its source and it has Stingmon as its source, and I'm sorry if this gets complicated, then what that means is that this Digimon will be able to unsuspend itself once, so have 2 attacks in a row if it wants, and it will be able to have piercing. So it can attack once, destroy Digimon, check security with jamming, and then do the same thing again. And what you could do if you really wanted to be sneaky about it is you could go Paildramon, attack with it, have piercing and jamming, then Digivolve into Paildramon and attack another 2 times with piercing and jamming. So you could technically knock out 3 of your opponent's Digimon, if they're all unsuspended, and check 3 security cards fairly safely with jamming. And to have that, I think, is amazing. And then the combo only gets deeper when you realize that you can go into like this Omnimon that's coming out in BT5 with Blitz. So, okay, fine, you've attacked with Omnimon. I mean, you've attacked with Paildramon, you've attacked with Imperial Dramon. You've gotten 3 attacks out. They've all been piercing and jamming. Suddenly, when you Digivolve into this guy, you get to attack again. So you get another attack with piercing. And I think it's amazing. And if you went the other route, and you digivolved Omnimon into, say, Ulforce Veedramon or something, you could potentially give it jamming. So then, it doesn't matter too much once you have the Omnimon level, but Omnimon with jamming is still, pretty niche. And there's still other Omnimon and things that could knock it out. So where does piercing and jamming really sit well? Well, Ulforce Veedramon can attack multiple times depending on how many tamers you have. And you're able to suspend. If this guy has jamming, you can attack more times than if you had Imperial Dramon. If you have 4 tamers down, you could attack with this thing 5 times and have jamming 5 times. Now you could equally just switch the jamming off at piercing, but the issue there is that you could knock yourself out. Now there is a workaround with this, and that is you just use Let's Stop Fighting, and then you attack with Ulforce Veedramon. Say you attack 5 times because you have 4 tamers out, and all of those attacks have piercing. It means you can attack 5 of your opponent's Digimon and check 5 security cards. But again, that's a lot of requirements, right? Because you're still looking to have all those tamers out preemptively, and having the memory for Let's Stop Fighting, as well as likely evolving into Ulforce Veedramon. But again, if say you're, another route is you just go Veemon, they have level 6, you digivolve into Ulforce Veedramon, you don't get piercing or jamming, but you can still attack because, these tamers are out or something. Like I said, you will need more tamers if you want to use Ulforce. Ulforce is a big strategy, but having these guys here means I can just take an Ulforce in with like 3 or 4 tamers that are suspendable, and that's pretty neat. And as far as suspending tamers for Ulforce goes, Sora and Joe is a beauty of one, because it does suspend when you attack, where Matt, you have to play Digimon, so you have to make sure you have the memory to be able to play the Digimon. Which is where situations like just going full Gomon, Matt, Ulforce Veedramon is amazing because you can just lower that cost so much. I mean, it also depends on how many Digimon they have, but you can lower that cost so much and then attack so much. And still get those sorts of nice tech options off. But yeah. You always want to be careful between getting rid of their Digivolution sources for Gomon. Because obviously the more Digimon they have without sources, the less the cost is going to be high for Gomon. But the more Digimon they have without sources, the lower its cost. But the less Digimon they have, the more. But if they have Digimon, you likely want to attack them with piercing, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, regardless, what else do we use piercing and jamming for? Hex Blaumon, everyone's favorite. So, new card, BT5. When you attack, you trash the bottom 2 Digivolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon. So you're already getting rid of some of their sources, which is fantastic. But, of course, I should mention, Hex Blaumon can't get jamming or piercing because it's data attribute. You know what? I actually messed up a huge amount just then. Sorry. I did this before as well when I was thinking about it. Ulforce Veedramon is vaccine attribute. It's not actually free, so you can't actually use it with Stingmon or XV. I apologize. I should take that back. But I'm glad I realized during the video as well. During the stream. I'm very happy that I did do that. But yeah, so, oops, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine because Ulforce is mainly just here to tech in, to be used with Veemon, and it's got its own deck in a different video. What we can do though is use Imperial Dramon Dragon mode and give this jamming, so it's got piercing, so you can put it on top of Pale Dramon. So this thing can attack security with jamming, attack, and then go on to do another 2 attacks with piercing and jamming. So again, you can get 3 attacks with this guy in Paildramon. You just have to make sure you attack the security first, because if you attack their Digimon first with piercing, both this effect and the Paildramon effect will happen at the same time, and you won't be able to attack 3 times in a row, only twice. So definitely remember that, because that's a little bit of a weird hidden tech for you guys. Speaking of, I should buy some more Imperial Digimon Dragon Mode, because I have none. This guy... Oh, so, anyway, Hexblamon is here because your opponent's Digimon without sources can't attack or block. It also gets jamming if there's a Digimon with no sources. So it's just, in general, great, and it gets rid of sources. It does everything. It sustains itself. You can build an entire deck with just Hexblamon and some stuff, and you're pretty fine. It really, like, I use it as a nice tech option, a little bit like Shakumon, which you guys can see is here. Because this one stops your opponent's Digimon without evolution sources from getting security attacks, but it doesn't stop them from actually attacking or blocking. So Hexblamon's just a better version of this. You can even Digivolve this card into Hexblamon because it's traded as blue. So they're both just nice tech options, and yeah. I do enjoy how the artwork looks, and I do enjoy Chris Paildramon, which trashes sources and gives you security attack +1, so if they have a card, Digimon with no Digivolution sources. So this is amazing, because, I mean, you can use Wagerumon as well if you wanted to, or, what is it, this one? Aerovedramon, because that also gives security checks. So this one gives security checks for not having any opponents with no sources under their Digimon. This one gives you security checks if you have 8 or more cards in your hand. But the idea is that with both of these cards anyway, if you put Imperial Digimon on top, instead of costing 3, it'll cost 5, so be wary. But you would be able to attack, twice. No. You could attack once. But you would be able to do a big security check. But if you put it on, say, Alforce Vedramon, then you would be able to attack multiple times still, and you would be able to get multiple security checks off. So say you could unsuspend this 2 or 3 times, and you had either of those 2 as sources underneath of it. So you'd need a lot of setup from Tamers in the beginning, though, remember that. But it does mean that you can just do security checks for, like, I don't know, say two security at a time. You attack 3 times, that's 6 checks or something. You're pretty solid. Most of the time, though, I'd rather just attack a lot than get security checks, extra security checks, but hey. And the same thing with this guy, Imperial Digimon Dragon Mode. If you do the piercing thing, if you get extra security attacks, you leave yourself vulnerable for getting destroyed by opponent's Digimon in security, as you do with Alforce Vedramon anyway, unless you use the Let's Stop Fighting card, but you would still be checking a lot of security. Hexblamon also benefits, extra security attacks on that, it enjoys it. Now, here's the new level 6. Imperial Digimon Dragon Mode, I love this art, I love this card. It's both a downgraded, like a more washed up version of the jamming Imperial Digimon that's from Blue. But it's also its own unique thing, and it's also a nice little side play. And it is actually comparable if you think about it a little bit, and you use it right. So, this Digimon, although it doesn't unsuspend every Digimon with jamming, when you Digivolve it, if it's got a Digimon card with free in its attribute, if it's got a free Digimon, and its sources, you can unsuspend this Digimon and then suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. So if you got like a Vmon under there, if you got a Stingmon or EX Vmon, which is what you'll want anyway, you will be able to unsuspend this Digimon when Digivolve it. So that's cool. You can give this thing piercing or jamming is what that means. But also, for each card with a different color in this Digimon's sources, it gets 1000 DP. So if there's a blue source underneath, it goes to 12. If there's a green source as well, like say Stingmon, it'll go to 13. Because that's how maths works. And getting 13 attack on this thing is pretty decent. It is possible to make it go to 14 or 15. But for that strategy, I don't know, people have worked out things like use a level 4 Tyrannomon that can go onto green or red. Because it's also counted as green or something like that, and then you Digivolve onto green on top of it, so you have... And you start with... I think you start with a green Agumon. You go into Tyrannomon. And then... you go from there? You know, I forget. You guys will probably see it around. There's a few different ways I think you can do it anyway, though. But, oh, actually, no, there's not. That Tyrannomon is the only way you can get the champion level at the moment to be a different color. Because it's the only one that's counted as both red. It's 2 different colors in the champion level, or level 4. So, generally, though, it'll be possible to boost this thing by 3000 attack power. There is a Demi Vmon card, an in-training baby Digimon that you can use to give it a plus 1000 attack power. There's also that Wanyamon, another egg one that if your opponent has 2 cards without sources, it gets 2000 attack, so you could also boost its attack that way. And if you do that, you might feel like this card doesn't really need jamming, so you might just go the piercing route. Or you might not. But either way, this card has a few different advantages over the other Imperial Digimon, but also you can just use 4 of them, you know? Like 4 of this and 4 of the other one, and then suddenly you've got 8 Imperial, if you really want to go that deep into it. Yeah, you know what? When I was saying this Omnimon could get piercing and jamming, I was wrong, by the way, because it doesn't have phrase of attribute. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but yeah. So, other cards. Let's start here. Shakumon, it's great for against Digimon that don't have sources because they don't get to attack security. Well, they don't get to do damage to security. Dino Beamon is new, so it's green. And because it's green, it means you can only Digivolve Imperial Digimon on top of it. Both kinds. Because they go into green. All 3 kinds, can go into green. But that's about it. Also be aware that this Imperial Digimon that is green Omnimon can't go on top of it. But that should be the only case. So, this green dude, it gives you another color for when you want to go into Imperial Digimon that needs colors for DP. Also, from the EX set, also when Digivolving, if it's got a Digimon with friends trades, you can suspend one of your opponent's Digimon with 5000 DP or less. That's just okay. And then when a Digimon with Imperial Digimon in its name deletes an opponent's Digimon in battle and survives, you get memory +1. So, if you use this card with the green Imperial Digimon, that's pretty great, because suddenly you might be getting +2 memory, because it's not once per turn, that inherited effect. Just depends on how often you use it. But generally, Imperial Digimon gets strength from Pale Digimon, and that's how it's able to attack multiple times normally. So, it's not as relevant as you'd think, but you do get memory. So if you want to build up a memory sort of deck, this is an okay card to go. It's just here to show off that. Arrow Vegemon's here because one of your blue Digimon becomes active when you suspend it. Also, you know, it's nice because one of your Digimon gets jamming as an inherited effect. So if you want to give this guy, not this guy. If you want to give this guy jamming or this guy jamming, you definitely can. You can also give this guy jamming, which is pretty huge, but it will cost 5 to play that card down as well. Omnimon will get jamming if you Digivolve on top of something that has that as a source. But that's more or less the extent of why this card is there. This one already has jamming, a little bit like Paildramon, so you can just attack with it. Then if you Digivolve, say, Imperial Dramon on top of it, which it will cost more, you can unsuspend it anyway, though. And it gives you security attack +1 for 8 cards or more. So if this Veemon can give us a whole bunch of cards because we attack a whole bunch, then this Aero Veedramon gives us an extra security attack because of that. So good little combos. This Paildramon, I don't mind. So it's the same as the EX Veemon from, I think it was B22. When you Digivolve, if it's got it free in its traits, in sources, sorry, you can unsuspend this Digimon. So it's pretty neat. And I've got a deck revolving around this card a little bit more heavily, as you will see later. Also, its inherited is Imperial Dramon can't be blocked. So if you have, say, this Imperial Dramon down and you need to make an extra attack and make sure it doesn't get blocked, that's how you do it. That's how you get around, like, say, a black deck or something. Doesn't matter for this one. This Imperial Dramon, it means it can't be blocked, right? Which is very cool. Same with this one, couldn't be blocked. So if there's a piercing target that you want to specifically hit, you can get it, but normally they won't really attack with that anyway. So I feel like the inherited for that isn't very important. I might come in clutch in the moment, but not that much. This is just so all our Imperial, because there's 3 different kinds in here, get to be unsuspended. And it's got jamming, so it works really well with the blue one anyway. Yep. Now we come to the final little bit. Mechanorimon is the best blocker. I will always say that for a long time, because it's the lowest cost, it's very strong, and when it blocks something, you can unsuspend it, which is amazing. Tourbillon, the cheapest champion to Digivolve into, cheapest to play in blue. Very easy to get advantage in card draw. Lobobon, I have one because I have the old art, and it's good just to chuck into a tamer and it can secure you a win. I think 1 is fun. I think 2 is also pretty good. 3 is alright, but getting clunky. 4 I would say is way too clunky, especially 3 probably is a little bit too, depending on how many Ulforce Veedramons you have. But if you run, like, I don't know, 8 Tamers or something, and a whole bunch of them are Davis, you're not going to miss Davis with Lobomon. Because Davis has already done its usefulness when you have more than one. Yeah. Veedramon 0 is here because we get the draw from it. It's inherited. And it gets to... It's the only blue Digimon I know of that lets us reshuffle our discard pile back into the deck, so we don't actually deck out. And you can use it more than once a turn, so if it's under Ulforce Veedramon, you get to draw 3 cards, you know? It's that card draw, it's that reshuffling, and that means you get to shuffle 9 cards back into your deck. That's huge. I think you can... Having 1 or 2 will just save you from decking out, I think. Granted, you know, you're able to play it and get its effect off a little bit. And Ikakumon is the newest edition. It's common. It's from the EX set. I wanted to test it out. So, your turn. This Digimon can also attack your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with no Digivolution cards. So, it's a little bit like Chaosmon or something. So, 6,000 attack is pretty decent, pretty fair. If there's a Veemon in your way or something, you know what? Maybe you just Digivolve into this and you, Sorry, if you've got a Veemon that can't attack over something, maybe you just Digivolve it into this and you knock out a specific thing. You can destroy their little rookies that they were hoping to Digivolve up into. Like, think about how powerful that is, right? They've got some rookies out, and you just destroy the rookie, and then suddenly they're like, oh no, I have no more rookies, I'm stuck with champions in my hand, and then they brick, and they just have to play really strong high-level cards, and give you a whole bunch of memory, because they're not prepared for the Ikakumon, which no one is. And you've just disrupted their plan. They can't draw into anything good. So, I think Ikakumon can be really strong. I think there's a nice niche and play for it. I don't really like the Digimon that much, but I do like this art. I do like the original stuff. I like the ability. I think it's very cool and niche, and I want to see some use from it. And that's the latest deck variation that I'm trying to build in before some new stuff. But of course, like if I look at this deck list, like this card is coming out soon. The EXV stuff, so this isn't dropping for another 2 or 3 months yet. This stuff is probably further off than that. Same with this dude and like the new Imperial Dramon and all that stuff. So what I would do is just kind of fill cards, like if you want to add some more Ulforce instead of this guy or some of the other Imperial Dramon, that's a good idea. Rather than this guy, just, I don't know, maybe try adding another Shikumon if you really want. Maybe some blockers. Yeah, you know what, adding some blockers could probably be good. Colamon, you can use Grismon in the meantime. I'd use Grismon, and I'd also use a whole bunch more Tubiomon. Get the ratios right for that and do it that way. This guy, I use Kurisarimon instead, and Gardramon from black. Agumon and Gotsumon from black as well, that cost 3, are not too bad if you just want something to take a hit, or to save your security for a turn, or something like that. So I also recommend those guys just a bit. Just a bit. Could always add some more Lobomon rather than this guy, just I don't know. Add some Gavamon that have when play on play draw effects, because they're pretty simple. And that's it. Like, you can only do what you can with the cards you have. You can add more options, more tamers. You guys will find ways to fill the slots. But for now, this is the deck. This is what I've done. I hope you guys enjoyed my what do I even call this? Like, future jamming Imperial Dramon deck. How about that? EX Imperial Dramon. Imperial Dramon future EX Imperial Dramon deck. There we go. Something like that. I think that is what we'll go with. And yeah. I'll catch you guys later. I'm gonna get you, and chill is what I said, by the way. Hope you guys have a lovely day. Support each other and take care, and I'll catch you all somewhere. If you guys enjoy this, give it a like, give it a view, give it a shout out. If you guys have some Pokemon that you are very passionate about, that you really enjoy, sorry, not Pokemon, some Digimon that you just enjoy, like whether it's the card or whether it's the artwork, let me know. We can try and figure out some cards that work well with it, and build you a deck that's sustainable, or at least that you're going to have some fun with. It doesn't matter if the win rate's always like 90% or something like that. But hey, if we're gunning for something like 65, 75%, I think that's pretty decent. I think that's enough to have fun. Most of the time, Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.